Hi everyone, I'm Angela Melvin, founder and CEO of Valerie's House. I'm here in what we call the Not Alone room, or the teen grief support room at the Family is Forever home at Valerie's House. And I'm here with someone very important to me personally, as a fellow person who's just dug into the field of helping others who have gone through what our families have gone through. Al Kinkle, everyone. The one and only. Many people know you in our community, Al, because you've been around in a lot of capacities. Yeah. Originally, you were a supporter to so many nonprofits through your previous position. You were a donor.
Right.
You certainly supported me and Valerie's House years ago. And then you had your own vision and your own dream for your own nonprofit.
Right.
So today, in honor of August being Overdose Awareness Month, I think it's important when we recognize these months that it's not just about the fact that people pass away and lose their lives to addiction, but it's an awareness of what can we do to help those struggling, and what can we do to help those family members of those left behind, and how do we continue to keep this conversation going. I think that's the most important thing that you and I want to do today, is reminding our region that this is not getting any better right now. We're making progress,
Right.
but it seems to be that we're still getting calls every week of families who have lost a person that they love from addiction, as I know you probably are too. So share with us a little bit about Kimmie's Recovery Zone.
Sure.
And what you think about this month and setting the tone for how we want to help families who are walking through addiction.
Right, and I think you just touched on what's really going on right now. We've never seen anything like this as far as overdosing is concerned, and the use of fentanyl today, which really just really made it a lot worse. Right now, the fentanyl being in, they say 70% of all drugs that people use today probably has fentanyl in it. I like to say and be safe and say probably 100%. You really can't tell, but
Of any drug,
in
you're
any
saying.
in any drug, it could be. One young lady from Cape Coral took a Percocet for a toothache, and it was all fentanyl. So today she's not with us any longer. So the warning out there is, don't take anything, don't use anything. This isn't the way drugs used to be delivered many, many years ago. Fentanyl is not only people taking it and not know they're taking it, but also are deliberately taking it because the cost, it's cheaper. It used to be heroin, now it's fentanyl. So the overdoses from, my daughter passed away from an overdose of heroin and fentanyl after being clean and sober for 2 years. And so night before she was coming home, she decided she would do something for her last night before she went home, and in there was fentanyl, and today we call it poisoned by fentanyl. So another thing you mentioned, every week you're getting calls. We get more calls every week. It's unbelievable. Last week I think I had 3 phone calls from parents, either have lost their child or the fact that their child's using, and what can we do about that? Well, we can do a lot to help people, and especially the younger people that are just really experimenting. And we have a program called Kimmie's Kids, and we've had some success with that. We hope to expand it into the future because, as you know, Angela, when we can help them at a young age, we're not going to have to deal with later on. That's why Valerie's House is so important, because you touch those children, you love those children, you've been close to you, and that you are really changing their lives and saving their lives. More than likely won't lead them into addiction. You just spoke to me about one young man who I think of all the time, and I'd like you to just mention that young man and tell us where he's at right now.
You and I met, we had lunch maybe 5-6 years ago at Lexington Country Club when you were still there, and as the GM, correct?
Yeah.
And you wanted to know a little bit about Valerie's House, and you wanted to know, what is this program you're starting? And you asked me, do you help families who have lost someone to addiction? Because that was personal for you. And I said, you know, it's interesting that you ask that, because when I started Valerie's House in 2016, that wasn't on my radar. On my radar was mainly families who had lost someone, like I lost my mom in a car accident, or maybe to a health condition, or to something that, you know, feels more out of our control, you know. But what we noticed after we opened Valerie's House, very, very quickly, within months of 2016 and then into 2017, as you know, that's when opioids and that whole thing with the pharma, it was on the streets everywhere. We started seeing probably 1 out of every 4 or 5 families that they were coming to us for help because mom or dad died from an overdose. And now it's 1 out of 3 families are coming to us. So Austin, who you and I had, you know, such a pleasure of having this lunch with this teen, and Austin is now at the University of Central Florida. He had lost his father. His father, through some health conditions, also became addicted. Austin watched that, and then Austin also used as well to cope with the loss of his father. So he was going down that path, and he would often come to Valerie's house, not high, because we don't allow them to come in high, but he might tell us in that group, which was specifically for families who had lost a loved one that way, that I'm tempted to use, I want to use, and I need help.
Right.
And years later, because of Valerie's House and because of the will to survive, Austin is now getting his master's and then on to getting his PhD at the University of Central Florida, focusing on clinical studies and research on trauma and the brain and what trauma does to the brain, which is what causes sometimes us to use, was when we have gone through a traumatic experience and it shifts the brain. And so he's thriving right now. He texted me a couple days ago because he's on a Valerie's House scholarship.
I love it.
And he comes back here and volunteers and mentors. So a lot of what we do here is that pay it forward part of it. And I think that's how you approach it as well at Kimmie's Recovery Zone, correct? Tell us more about that.
Yeah, I think that's what we try to do. If you look at grief, for instance, and especially in the young folks, but anybody that suffers grief has to understand that it's a journey that no one wants to take, but we all wind up taking it sometime or another. So we try to play it forward and try to encourage them that although you are suffering a lot today, that as time goes by and you have more information and work some of the programs that we have, that they will play it forward and they'll see a different life coming on the horizon. You know, they'll know that someday that they'll be able to at least deal with it and live with it and work with it, and it doesn't have to destroy them. And that's the fear that we have, is that some people don't come for help, and they're just suffering in their own grief. And you know, in my case, like in your case, it prompted me to do something that helps my grief tremendously, the loss of my daughter. You know, people think that, you know, when you have a loss that it's over, but it's really not. When I look back at Kimmie, I loved Kimmie so much when she was on earth, but my love for her has grown because now I see what she did to survive and try to become whole again. And I just have so much respect and love for that, for anybody that goes through that. That's why when people come to us, I think we all are in recovery or been in recovery or are in recovery, and we understand it, and we want to help them because we know that someday you're going to be whole again and be okay, and like what you're doing, especially with young people. If you stop it at that young age, Kim was 20 years in recovery, basically, in using, but tried to stop for 20 years, so you might not have to go through that. That young man is a perfect example of what you did there. That's a miracle.
And
You
he,
saved a life.
and he's been very public about this too, you know, and I've had other teens tell me it is a lifelong struggle, especially going through college and some of those young years where there's so much pressure,
Right.
and something happened where you may not get the grade you wanted, or actually I think with him it's like his dog died, and it was his best friend, and he was craving to use because that's what he knew would help in the moment,
Yeah.
and he didn't. He got through it, but it was hard. It was a long conversation we had one night to get him through that night. And so I think that the understanding for those that are in our lives that are struggling, that it's forever for them.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just a phone call or an hour of your time that you're going to give them, and you're going to get them through, right?
Yeah.
So tell us more about Kimmie's Recovery Zone, because I think the community needs to know you're doing so much, and you're like almost like a Valerie's House trajectory. It's like it feels like every year you're just growing, and there's more that you're taking on, and you're seeing the needs. So tell us some of your main programs. I know we refer a lot of families over to you, and then how people can get involved and not be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest issues that we have. People are afraid to ask for help. And that's why we have our hotline, so to speak. And people can call us. And if they call us, somebody's going to answer that phone either immediately or within a very short period of time. And because we think it's important, because if somebody has the courage to make that first phone call and we can get a hold of them, we can change their lives, hopefully, with some of the programs that we have. We have support groups and programs there a couple times a week. We also do it on podcasts so that people, or Zoom or podcast, not podcast, I'm sorry.
Virtual?
Yeah,
Okay.
virtual. And even some of we work in the homeless camps too, and there's some of the miracles there that happen. Heidi was shocked one day. She said, "I can't believe it. Somebody is, in the tent and in the group with us." So we're changing lives.
Like was zooming in or on their
zooming in.
phone from a tent in a homeless camp,
Right.
had dialed into one of your virtual support groups.
Yes, yeah, and that to us is just to us it's a big miracle. I mean, we're so excited about that because also too we have one young lady now. She's in one of our videos, and she was in a homeless camp, and we got her out of there, and bought her some clothes, and she got a job, and she's working. She got her kids back. So the people have to understand that just because you have an issue today doesn't mean you're going to have it the rest of your life. You can recover. Recovery's for everybody. And right now, like I say, is such a dangerous point that we're in. We're collaborating with everybody in the community. All the places that work with us support us and help us, and I think that's really different than when we first started. 8 years ago is when we first started, and it was the neighborhood wasn't doing what they're doing today. You're sending people to us, we're sending people to different places, and we're all working together because we found out early on you just can't do it yourself. So we share the responsibility of changing the community with everybody that we work with. And we get a lot of support. The county gave us a building. Fantastic. And so we have a building on Page Field, and we have a pantry, food pantry in there. So what happens when we first started, we were just going to work with different pathways and recovery and things like that. And this had a food pantry connected to it. And what a great way for us to touch people with food. And there are people that might need our help. So we encourage all the staff to talk to them when they come in. And if they need help or support in any way, shape, or form, we give it to them.
Great. So you have support groups for what ages?
Well, any age, basically. We have the one, Kimmie's Kids, which is on a Saturday. But
Is that for teens or elementary?
teens,
Or teens,
yeah.
so like 12 or 13 and
yeah,
up?
and up to 18.
Okay, so Kimmie's Kids is on Saturdays.
Right.
And they can just reach out to you, and we're going to give the number in just a moment. And that's a teen group, a support group for teens who might be struggling with addiction or have someone in their family that's going through it, right? So either one, they can come and get some, just talk about it, right?
Yeah, we had, I think lately we've had, well, quite a few teens that have called us. Their moms have called us and gave permission, and we've talked to some teens recently. And I think that is the other issue. When we talk to parents, just like when I talked years and years and years ago, we said, oh, not my kid. They're not really doing anything right now. But again, the fear that you think that it might lead to something else. So if there's even a hint that your child's struggling, they need to, if it has something to do with what you do here at Valerie's house, then they need to come here. You know, that kind of a grief. You're well suited to do that. We're not prepared at this time for that, but we will help young people and teens, because again, stop it there. You don't have to worry about it later on in life.
Get in front of it.
Yeah, get in front of it.
So you have Kimmie's Kids on Saturdays. That's a teen support group. And then what else do you have?
We're open 5 days a week.
Okay.
And we're a food, like I say, a food pantry, and also too we have a connection with clothing. So we have clothing also for families, and I'm on the board of directors for the Kiwanis, and the Kiwanis support us there. Anything that our community might need, they always support us and help us. So we do that, and then we have meetings there, support group meetings at night. We have 2 nights that the support groups are there, and you know, and on Sunday we also have another support group. We have the Zone, which is alcohol-free night, of course.
The Zone is on the last Friday of every month.
Right.
And that's a hangout where it's, you know, substance-free, alcohol-free, a way to just get together and connect with others in the recovery community.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
And you also said you have a hotline, too.
Yeah, where people can call us on the phone. They have it, the Grasshopper we use, and they call us and they leave their information for us, and we usually get back with them right away, basically, as soon as we can. I mean, we're, like I say, we're open every day, so there's no reason that we don't.
So someone's answering the phone during the day, but just not it's not like a 24/7 hotline.
No.
There's other lines for that, which we'll have on our screen and have as a part of this podcast as well in the notes section, because there's multiple lines now that you can call for help. If you are struggling.
Right.
And so I'm so happy that really the community is becoming much more aware. And, you know, you think of the fentanyl topic, it's in every presidential debate, and, you know, every politician is sharing that they want to help and they want to support. But you and I both know, we're kind of like, well, but we're not really seeing a lot of solutions. It's you and I and others on the ground here that are really on the front lines of facing it, and so we're just going to continue pushing through, aren't we, Al?
Yeah, and it's amazing. Like I say, I don't want to mention some of the groups that came to us now, but you know, 8 years ago when we went to those groups, they didn't think that this was going to happen, and now it's happening, and that's the issue. We are short of services. We don't have enough services, complete services. The services we have and the people we collaborate with, I'm really proud of what they do. You know, there's a lot of us out there that really care and really make a difference. But without, you know, all the services that we need, and the fact that insurance, if you don't have insurance, it really It makes it very difficult. We've been able to help people without insurance, but it's very, very difficult. So one of the biggest things that we could do immediately is have insurance for everybody, but we know that we've been talking about that for a long, long time. And, you know, that really hurts them getting into programs.
Do you have counseling at Kimmie's Recovery Zone?
Well, we're peers, so we're like
peer support,
yeah, we're
okay.
a peer support group,
The
and we have
licensed
7 of us.
Licensed mental health counseling you would refer out
We
if they
refer
wanted. But
all
that's
that
where you said insurance is sometimes needed and you run
Yeah.
into that barrier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Insurance, and then also we talked about it, the psychiatry and all that.
Right, with the medication and everything.
And it takes a long time to get an appointment.
Sure does.
I think it's 6 months.
Still
I
such a
just
wait.
talked to one of the doctors at the hospital, and I think between 4 and 6 months right
Yeah.
now. And I know one of my daughters had to find a psychiatrist, and I think she had to wait 4 months. You know,
And
for
that's 4 to 6 months is, you know, we want to cut that time. We
No.
need to cut that time down because that's
It's-
not, you know, I don't think that's acceptable for our community. And I
No.
think there's a lot of us that are working very hard, a lot of donors, a lot of
Right.
supporters that want to see us improve the quality of care that we're providing to prevent overdoses, to prevent loss and grief
Right.
before it's too late.
Yes.
So we're so proud to have you on this show today and everything that you shared about your nonprofit. And is there a phone number that we should call if we want to get
Go
involved?
ahead, Haj.
It's 844-579-PEER,
Okay.
which is 7337.
Okay. So the number to call is 844-579-PEER, P-E-E-R. And that's a number that families can call and reach out for help from Kimmie's
There you go.
Recovery Zone. Okay.
This is a tough time, and this is an emergency situation. So when we were talking about it before, we really have to realize that, and I don't like to use the word war, but this is kind of, we got to throw everything at it that we can. And when you think about it, we're talking a lot about it, and the people that are on the grounds like us and the 10 or 15 other groups that I work with are out there really trying, but it's not that easy. The schools, we're just in all the schools with Narcan, which is a miracle. The school came to us, and we went to them and talked to them about putting Narcan in the schools. We have Narcan in 120 schools, and that in itself is scary because you got to figure they're children, and we have to have Narcan in the schools just in case something goes wrong. And you know, Sheriff Carmine has worked with us greatly. He just put on all the sheriffs now carry Narcan with them. So people realize that it's an emergency, but we have to be able to do more, and we have to be able to support people that don't have insurance.
What more can we do? What's on your agenda in the short term? What do you want to see happen?
Well, we want to get the word out there, and that's what we're trying to do, you know, through different processes that we're doing. We want to get the word out. We want to prevent the stigma of addiction. You know, sometimes people talk to me about somebody that might be addicted, and sort of like way back in my day, almost, where some people are still in that frame of mind where people, well, don't they just want to use drugs? No, they don't just want to use drugs. It's a brain disease. You know, it should be treated like any other disease. And that's where we fall short. That's where we fall short.
Sounds like, and that's where you want insurance to step in.
Absolutely. Yeah. Without insurance, in the sense, and without being too dramatic, but it's the truth, you could be giving somebody a death sentence because they can't get help. You know, we help them. I think we do a great job. You help them, and all the other collaborators help, but we can only go so far.
Well, thank you so much.
Well, thank
it's been
you.
a fantastic pleasure to have you here
Yeah.
at Valerie's house, and we will make sure that we continue to spread the word to our families that we know could benefit from coming to Kimmie's Recovery Zone. So congratulations on all your success.
Thank you. And it's
you.
an honor to be here, and thank you for everything that you do.
Hello, I'm Angela Melvin, founder and CEO of Valerie's House, and I'm here with a very special guest on this episode of Grieve Love Heal. This is part 2 of a special episode that we've been putting together on Overdose Awareness Month and helping families and teens and children really understand that they're not alone in this journey, in this walk, whether they've lost someone to addiction, whether they themselves are struggling, or maybe they just want to know how to help someone. I couldn't do this alone, so I've asked one of our special teens here to co-host with me. That's basically what you're doing with me today. And we're going to share a little bit about Ava's story. And for those of us who might want to know more about how to help others, you're certainly going to learn a lot during this podcast. First of all, Ava, explain, what are we holding here? And where are we, by the way? What room are we in?
We're in a family room. This is where I have my groups Wednesday night at 6:30. And these are our, like, cuddle buddies, I call them. Like, when I'm in group or, like, something, and, like, I just want to cuddle with something, I just cuddle with this because it's, like, weighted.
Yeah, it's kind of heavy,
And
isn't
they're
it?
soft, yeah. They're nice.
And they're soft.
Yeah.
So this setting right here in this room, which we call it the family room because this might be hard to see, but it says family, doesn't it? Why do you like this room for your special support group that you're in?
I like this room because I feel like it brings out character. Like, I feel like, especially for teens, like, it just, like, brings us out with, like, the colors and, like, the LED lights and, like, the graffiti. So that's why I like it.
Were you surprised when you first came to Valerie's house?
Yeah. Well, at the old house, like, I was still surprised because, like, even there it was, like, such a small setting, but just such a big group of people. So, but when I came here, I was, like, even more surprised because it was just so much bigger, and it was just, like, so much has progressed, and yeah.
What do you think is most surprising for new teens that come into a place like Valerie's house, especially if they've lost someone in a really tough way? Like, what do you remember that first time you walked in here?
The first time I walked in here, I was shocked, like, on how much, like, kids my age were, like, gone or had, like, family members that were gone. And it was hard, but it was also, like, comforting knowing that, like, there's other people, like, around here in this community that are going through what I'm going through. So it was, like, comforting and, like, yeah.
How could you put it into words what you are going through or what it has been like? Can you tell us a little bit about how you lost your mom, how long ago, how old you were, and what it's been like for you?
When I lost my mom, I lost her due to an overdose. I was 12, and I felt like guilt and, like, betrayal, and I felt like it's, like, hard to, like, say, but, like, I just felt like a piece of me was missing, and so, like, that was, like, the hardest part of it all. But I came to Valerie's house and I, did the work. And yeah.
If someone hasn't lost a parent, how do we even put it into words? What does it feel like?
I feel like it's something you just have to go through. Like, you've never lost a parent. Like, you don't know what it feels like. Like, you think you know, but, like, you don't know. So I feel like if someone were to ask me, like, how it feels, I'd be like, just feels like pain and, yeah.
A lot of pain, huh? And sometimes people, they think might it go away or something? Like, what do you think about that?
I don't think it ever goes away. I think it, I think the pain goes down more. Like, I don't think it'll ever go away. But I think, like, as you work through your grief and, it'll, like, not go away, but, like, it'll, you'll get comfortable with it,
What's been the hardest part to get comfortable with after your mom died?
The hardest part was, like, accepting it. Like, I couldn't accept it for a long time, and it was just, like, I was lonely and angry. So, yeah, I mean, I just kind of, like, I just took it like one day at a time and focused on myself more than like anything. And then eventually, like, it wasn't as bad as it was the day that she died.
Mm-hmm. Did you find out suddenly? Were you there? Were you?
So I was with my grandma, and we were going to get clothes because I was staying with my grandma at the time. And like, I had walked in, and I had thought she was sleeping, so, because, I mean, it was like a rough time for her. So I thought she was just like passed out, drunk or something. So I went to my room and grabbed my stuff. And then my grandma came in and she was like, Ava, she's cold. And like,
Is that when you knew? Do you think you knew right then? You're like, this is it. Had you been expecting it, something like that would happen?
well, kind of. I mean, I knew like, I knew she was in a bad place, and I knew that, you know, she wasn't okay. But I didn't think it would happen so soon.
Right, I gotcha. I think that's what sometimes people don't understand, is that even when our loved one is really struggling, we always have hope.
Right?
They're going to get better. We don't ever lose that. And so some might go, well, you know, wouldn't you have just already pictured this was going to happen? And that's why I asked you it like that, because the reality is, no, we always expect them to somehow, some way, find a way. And when they're gone, that's a whole new level of pain for us.
Right.
When your mom wasn't struggling, what was she like?
She was funny and kind, and she had a lot of mental problems even when she wasn't using. But like, for the most part, she was just like, you know, you could go to her with anything, and she wouldn't judge you. And I'm sorry.
No. What's one of our rules at Valerie's house?
I couldn't feel.
That's right. It's okay to feel. For people who might be listening, who maybe they've never even met anyone that has been struggling with alcohol or even like substance abuse or whatever it may be. And they might have even a thought of like, well, they're just in this category or something. What would you want to say to them out there?
I feel like you never know who's going through it, because my mom was very careful about it. Like, we didn't really know when or when she wasn't until it was at that point. So I feel like, you know, you could be in such a dark place and like still put on like a smile, tell people you're okay, but you're not. And so I just think like just like tell people how you feel, because I mean, it could make a big difference, and it could help your family. So
Yeah. People who are struggling, they don't always have the words to tell what's going on and how they feel, so they can hide it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't really know what you're looking for, and most of us as kids, we don't know. We're just kids. Like, you were just in middle school. Were you even in middle school yet? Yeah. And so I think that, like you said, there's just so much out there that people don't understand still about addiction and how it can take over someone's life and their family and their children. And that's what we want to do with this special Valerie's House podcast that you're co-hosting with me, is to help people understand that this is still plaguing our community. You're in school. Do you know other kids who have parents who are struggling?
Yeah. Well, my school is like specialized for like traumatic things. So
Because you go to Pace, right?
yeah, I go to Peace.
Pace, shout out to Pace, one of our partners. What about, like, what do you learn from friends who have loved ones who are going through this? And even here, too, right? On this night, so talk a little bit about this night at Valerie's house that you're a part of, is a special night, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, it's always different. Like, I mean, I talked to some of my friends who have lost their moms from addiction, and it's just like we feel the same, but like it's so different. You know what I mean? Like we're just like our grief is different, but like we know how each other feels. Like we know how it feels like to not have our mom hugging us at night or something. So it's like it's comforting, but it's also like sad because like, you know, they're your friends. You don't wish that on them.
Yeah. It's like you don't want to see your friends hurt.
Right.
It's a place where no one wants to have to come, but we're glad we have each other,
Yeah.
aren't we? Yeah. What can you tell us about if there is a teen who's listening to this and they have a parent that they're concerned with? What are some of the signs that maybe a teen or even a loved one or a friend, what are some signs that someone could be in a bad place? And is there any thoughts for those kids on what to do or say?
I know she would isolate herself a lot. She would just come home from work and then go to her room and just like say she was showering or doing whatever. Like we wouldn't even have dinner that night or something. We would have to make it for ourselves. So that's a big one, like isolation. I think like random what should I say? Like random
Like random comments or
Like-
actions?
like bursts, like angry bursts. My
Something
mom,
would just like be
yeah,
sparked. And
anything, the littlest thing. Like I remember I didn't sweep the floor good enough, and my mom, she was just so angry, and you know, for the littlest thing, and you know, it was I just felt like she was back to her old self, and I would tell myself it's okay, but like back on it now, I wish I had called for help so many times, and I just couldn't.
who can someone call for help
Um,
if they're in that situation?
I would always call my grandma, because I was scared to call the police. And my grandma, she would just talk me through it, or I would go to my sister's room and talk to her about it. And yeah, and then, yeah.
Sounds like having a safe person that you feel like you could call, because you don't know when it's going to happen, or
Right.
just someone that you can trust, because you said, I don't want to call the police, because that's scary sometimes. But is there someone else, when you think back on it, you said, I wish I could have spoken out for myself more, I guess, right? Like advocated for yourself a little bit more about what was happening.
I do wish a lot of times I could have called the police and had her Baker acted. But I mean, I couldn't.
Why couldn't you?
I just didn't, like I felt guilty. I felt guilty because, I mean, she was a good person. It wasn't like she was crazy or anything, so it's always like what was in the back of my head. She wasn't a bad person. She didn't deserve to be in there, but like, now when I think about it, in the moment that we were in, she like needed to be in there. And I just wish I did.
That's really brave of you to say. I think there could be someone listening to this that might be in that situation and might be a little nervous to call authorities. But when you look back on it, you're like, maybe that could have helped.
Yeah.
So for those listening, maybe that is something to do. As scary as it is, you know. But again, having an adult that you can depend on too, because you're a kid in these moments
Right.
making these decisions, right? So
Right.
you're also trying to find that adult that can help you, that you can call, that you feel like you can trust.
Yeah.
Right? When you're in a situation like that, I would think it would be hard to trust a lot of people.
I didn't trust anybody. I mean, not school counselors, not my therapist. I would be so particular in what I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like, I just couldn't, because my mom would always say, like, DCF's gonna come take you away, and I didn't want to be away from my mom, so I just kept it to myself.
Yeah. How do you think someone could have earned your trust back then for you to feel comfortable to tell them?
I'm like, I don't know, like, I've always had a hard time trusting people, and I think that's why, because, like, I mean, my mom would always just make these assumptions. So, I mean, I think because I was with my therapist for, like, 2 years, and, like, after, like, the first year, I finally started, like, telling her, like, what my mom's done, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So trust it's a theme even at Valerie's house, isn't it? Like, even when you come here on your first night, you don't always just open up all the time, you know, it takes some time. So for adults out there and those who want to help, it's like, it's not just going to happen overnight.
Right.
It's really someone that has to earn your trust.
Right.
And you're battling, I don't want to get my mom in trouble. I don't want to be in trouble. It's confusing, isn't it?
And it's hard. It's so hard because, like, I remember feeling like I know it would help, but, like, I mean, I just always thought about how it would hurt more.
You're like trying to weigh it out as a kid, to make that choice. That's why I think it's important for those listening to know how to earn a kid's trust. Like, how do we earn your trust? Maybe not even necessarily in that situation, but in general, I think people want to know how to help teens who have lost someone. They want to know how to help teens who might be in a tough situation at home. How do people earn your trust? What works for kids and teens?
I think consistency. I feel like a lot of people in my life were in and out, and I didn't have someone who I could actually, like, talk to. And so, I mean, and just, like, trusting the kid and trusting that, because I remember my therapist, I had told her that one thing, like, about my mom, and they called DCF. I told them, I begged them not to call. Begged them, like, I just wanted to get it off my chest, and, you know, I wanted advice.
Right.
And I know, like, that's what they're supposed to do, but, like, I mean, really, it's like, I feel like it's not, like, always, you know, like, the best option, the best first option. I feel like it doesn't have to be the first option. I feel like, you know, you go and you talk to the parents, you talk to the kids together, and you make your decision based off that. Because, I mean, I'll always remember it, like, it was just so hard. And then after DCF, my mom didn't trust me, and, you know, even though it wasn't even that bad of something that happened, it was still, like, it was hard.
Yeah, because then it probably made you close up, didn't it? Yeah. We, even as an organization, are always struggling with, you know, how do we help build trust with our families, but also know that some kids need to confide, they need to feel like you can, you know, they can trust you, but yet if they're in danger, it's on us to report. So everyone's always trying to make the best decision that they possibly can for you.
Right.
And the trust is huge, you know, that you have, first of all, have a voice and that you have people that care about you. And I hope you know that here you have that.
Yeah, this is my second family.
How has Valerie's house helped you with healing? And even for those who aren't here at Valerie's house, but they might be logging in, listening to this podcast, jumping on this site from like Canada.
Yeah.
What would you say to them? What has helped you in your grief journey and everything? Because it's been 2 years now.
I think what's helped me was family, spending time with my family. You know, like I said, just working on my self-love and putting myself first. And coming to Valerie's house has helped me so much. Therapy. I think just like being in a setting with people my age is just like the best thing for someone when they lose a person, especially if they've lost another person. So it's just like, you know, it's just, and it's fun. Like Valerie's house is fun. It's not like, you know, like I used to have this other therapy place where we would have groups and we would just like talk, but like we do activities and we do like, it's like, and it's consistent. I love consistency, so it's just like, it's a good place. I love it here.
Consistency meaning you're seeing the same people, and yeah, I know that's key. That is so key, because it's like you open up and then all of a sudden it's like a new face and a new adult in your life. And so here at Valerie's house, we really try to keep the same leaders in your group, or you know, the same friends, you know, that you know you're going to be able to see and connect with. What are your thoughts on how schools can better help kids and families who may be struggling with someone who's going through, like you said, using is the word you had put out there, or just any kind of, I guess, a home situation, right? That's rough. How do you think the teachers and school counselors or anyone in the kid's life can just better try to understand and support so you don't feel so alone?
I think school counselors should meet with their caseloads or whatever, about like every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks. Because I mean, when I was in public school, I had to ask to go, and I feel like it just wasn't like, you know. And then I think, you know, teachers, when I was in public school, I always had teachers that I could talk to who I loved so much. And so I think like a lot of the teachers are really there to help. And so I think it's so amazing. I love the teachers. And I think like, I mean, they should really like get stricter on some of the stuff, like, I don't know, like stuff going into the building or coming out. Like, I mean, I think it's like the metal detectors and stuff is cool, but I mean, it doesn't like prevent anything. Like, people are still like bringing stuff in and like, you know, I don't want to seem like a snitch or anything, but like, I mean, it's a real problem, and and I think like SROs should be involved. I think, I mean, if you want to prevent this, I mean, do everything in your power, you know?
Yeah. So I'm hearing from you that the teachers can be very helpful, because there were some teachers there that you really trusted and depended on. And so, you know, shout out to those teachers to keep asking questions and being that person for some of these students. You know, maybe you would open up to that teacher, and that teacher to have the courage to ask if they see something that doesn't look right. And and then talking about just getting for the schools to understand that this stuff is still getting in there, and you're talking about drugs and things like that are still making their way, and that's got to be really tough for you because of everything you've been through too, right? You don't want to see that, and it's just, it can be tempting, it can be all kinds of things, right? Or just triggering too. And the SROs too, I know they're trying to figure out ways to help, and you said they could also be an even bigger help. Yeah.
I mean, and a lot of people like put a lot of hate on them, and I feel like they're just there to help. Like, I used to be a big, like, hater, I guess, but, like, now it's just, like, they just want to help, and I've seen, like, videos and, like, all this stuff on it, and, like, they don't deserve the hate that they get, in a way, but, I mean, also, like, everyone could always do better, you know what I mean? Like, we're not, like, perfect, we're not all perfect, but I feel like, you know, if we all put in that effort, you know, the world could be such a better place.
We all have to be aware of it, which is what this podcast is all about, is making sure that this is a conversation that continues, as hard as it is to talk about, that we continue to share it, to talk about it, to invite people to Valerie's house who have had a loved one pass away. We have a special night that Ava's on, along with many other families who have lost someone who has struggled with an addiction. We know that there is, you know, a long journey ahead of healing. It doesn't happen. It's going to be something that we face our whole life. You know, I lost my mom when I was young, and you and I always hug when we see each other, because I remember being in high school and, like you said, missing her hug at night, you know, and that's just something that never goes away.
Yeah.
And that's why we have our dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Hug them during group. Is there anything else that you'd like to mention about Valerie's house, and specifically with August being a month where we're not only discussing the pain of losing someone to addiction, but we're also celebrating the successes. And you are a success. You are someone we wanted to highlight, to show you can and you will make it through, and you can be a shining light. As hard as those days can be, that for others out there that, you know, have had this happen to them, it's not their fault, right? Not your fault. How many times do we need to say that over and over, don't we?
A lot.
You think that's one of the hardest things people struggle with?
I know, like, when I was, you know, when it first happened, I was so guilty, because, I mean, I always thought it was my fault, because I would get in trouble at school a lot, and I always thought it put stress on my mom, and she used drugs to cope. But, I mean, like, realizing, looking back on it now, like, I was just a kid, like, I mean, those were mistakes that I made, and, you know, she could have handled it better. And that's why I have to get through the day sometimes.
Yeah. Our parents could have handled that stuff better. All parents can.
Yeah.
They're just trying as well, aren't they? So we'll give them some grace. We'll give your dad some grace, your grandparents. And we learn that here at Valerie's house too, that, you know, the people in our lives, how much they love us. And we even know those who have lost their lives to addiction would never have wanted it this way.
Right.
She loved you so much, and she didn't want this.
Yeah.
She was a victim too. And that's what we hold on to, is those moments that you shared, that when they weren't using, they were amazing. And that's a little bit of them are in us.
Yeah.
You know, so we are so grateful for you and for everyone out there who is open to this conversation. And if there are any thoughts, you know, for others out there, just, you know, send us an email, write us, let us know what other topics you want on this podcast. I think we're very open, aren't we, Ava? Especially for conversations with grief and teens, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've came with so many stories. They always find a way around it.
I agree. And it doesn't matter how you lost someone. My mom was in a car accident. You said Summer and your group are all different kinds of losses. Maybe it's an overdose, maybe it's alcohol, maybe it's could even be suicide or even health condition, but that we're all in this together, right? We're all walking this together. So we thank you, and just an honor to have you. And now you're even mentoring other kids coming through the program. Maybe end it with that. What is your goals and dreams right now?
My goal is to, right now, I get too excited myself. Right now is to just help people as much as I can. A lot of people struggle with it, and you know, I just want them to know that it's not like that forever, as corny as it sounds. I mean, it's really not. And like, you can get through it. You can always get through it. It just depends.
Depends on your support system, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I've seen you now with other kids who are going through it, the grief, and how you're able to tell them, I've been through it too, and how they open up to you. And, yeah, so thank you for doing that on behalf of everyone here. Thank you for the courage to talk about this, and just putting your foot through the door at Valerie's house is hard enough sometimes on that first night, but you did it, and we're proud of you. So good things for you ahead. So thank you, everyone, and we will definitely be having more episodes, and if you have any ideas out there of things you want to talk about, please reach out to us. Hello, I'm Angela Melvin, founder and CEO of Valerie's House here in beautiful Fort Myers with, I was going to say beautiful in many ways by spirit, soul, and definitely commitment.
Thank you.
City of Fort Myers Police Chief Jason Fields. Thank you so much for being here today.
No problem. Happy to be here.
Special place in what we call the Hope Room. Valerie's House, as you know, you've been right next to us as this is being built and grand opening, and then you and your team even coming over here and serving dinner one night. First of all, thank you for that. And
No problem. It was a great time. It was always good to see your staff, meet your staff, interact with them, but more importantly, even interact with a lot of the community that came out, a lot of the kids, the family, and we get to share some good stories and just have a good time all together.
what is it about Valerie's House that is meaningful to you, that you have said to your staff and to the force, hey, we've got to be involved here?
It's just a great partnership with us, and it's a great referral that we can offer to the community, to the grieving community, because this is kind of a unique place. It's very specialized, and we're very grateful that it's here and it's expanded. Obviously, with I think 3 campuses now you have, so it's great. It's unbelievable for us to be able to be a part of that.
Yeah. I know with August being National Overdose Awareness Month, I would imagine this is also on the minds of your force who are day in and day out on the streets and seeing this. What have you seen with what they call the epidemic of addiction and fentanyl, and just what are you seeing on the streets out there, and what can you do about it?
Unfortunately, on the ground level, the officers working the calls for service and responding to a lot of these crisis scenes. We're seeing it, and as our population has grown in Southwest Florida the last just few years now, we do see a little bit of an increase with it, and obviously with the introduction of fentanyl in just about every drug across the spectrum, we're seeing more and more of this. So we have been doing a lot of different strategies, initiatives. We're trying to do everything we can to get the prevention side out. Obviously, we have an enforcement portion of what we do, but we also like to do a lot of education.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about the enforcement portion and then also the education portion.
So the enforcement education, obviously we want to go after the most violent, dangerous people, and those people that are peddling these drugs or poison, as has been called numerous times. We want to be able to go after them. So we will take any lead possible, no matter where the source comes from, and investigate that. And sometimes these investigations are pretty lengthy. Sometimes they may take many weeks or months. But at the end result, we are hopefully going to be kicking in someone's door and arresting the person that is in charge of doing this, or holding them accountable. A lot of times we seize drugs with guns, so that's a 2-for-1, which is really good to see. And we're also going after, and we've had some landmark cases just here with the Fort Myers Police Department and Lee County, that we're going after the dealers that caused the death of somebody else. So that's pretty significant, and we're happy to be doing that.
Yeah, I can only imagine the celebration with, obviously it's not something that you ever want to celebrate as far as loss of life, but you certainly celebrate when you can get people like that off the streets, right? Because you know the impact that that's making.
Absolutely. Any loss of life is a tragedy, but if we can get some type of closure to the family of that individual and hold that person accountable, then we will.
Yeah. I've worked with a lot of kids here who have lost a parent to addiction, and specifically to fentanyl, and they usually know the person that supplied it. It's interesting, they may say like my mom's friend, or I remember my mom's boyfriend, or my dad, and they hate that person. Oh, yeah. And that's where a lot of that anger comes in, is they they know that it was someone, at least in their mind, you know, it was an addiction, but it was also there was someone who provided that drug to my mom. And maybe if that person didn't do that, my mom would still be here.
Sure, sometimes the worst people are the ones you know and the ones that are closest to you the most.
Yeah, and the kids know, you know, they understand that it wasn't just their parent, but it was it was part of a system right in place where these drugs are making their way into the community and are tempting people that might not otherwise, you know, be in a situation where they would be facing this.
Absolutely, that vicious cycle right there is sometimes bad.
Yeah. How do you see the impact of overdoses on families from your perspective?
Obviously, hits the community very hard. It hits the families even that much harder. So we do see it on the ground level a lot, almost daily. One of the units that we probably, or that's probably exposed to it the most with the Fort Myers Police Department is our HOT team, which is our Housing, Outreach, and Treatment team. Right after COVID, we created this, and with our partners over at the Lee County Human and Veteran Services, we were able to work together with them. They have clinicians, they have other people that provide resources, whether it's housing, and we kind of really got into the realm of the addiction portion of things, because a lot of the times people experiencing homelessness are, whether it's a mental health issue, whether it's some type of addiction, whether it's drugs or alcohol, so they're embedded in it daily, and they're constantly on the ground level working with those individuals and all the resources that the county and city has to offer to try and get them the help that they need.
So it's working with different departments, as you said, and different specialties. It's not just law enforcement, but who else can you bring in to be a part of that team?
We much rather do the outreach portion first, exhaust that before we have to take any kind of enforcement action.
Absolutely. Can you talk about the importance of love and support with the police force? I can only imagine what they see on a daily basis. And how do you have it set up to where they're getting supported as well? I mean, the last thing they want to do is take a child out of a home or have to arrest someone that they know is a parent or come up on a scene where they know someone has once again lost their life and chances are there's a family behind. How do you support, you know, your force and make sure that they're taken care of through all this?
I'll even throw one more to add to that is we have to make death notifications sometimes. So all these things weigh very heavily on the officers or the detectives or the investigators or whoever has to deal with these people in crisis or these situations. So I do believe strongly in officer wellness. So we have a number of initiatives. We have our internal peer support group. So if an officer is exposed to a critical incident or critical scene, they can talk to other officers and kind of work through that that have also been in those type of incidents. With our HR department, human resources through the city, we have an in-house clinician that works very closely with not only the police department, but also the fire department, because they're also our first responders.
Yes.
They're also exposed to a lot of these critical incidents. We have partnered with a couple organizations for wellness retreats or crisis or trauma retreats for the officers, and they have given scholarships to some of our officers. We've sent them as far as Texas and Colorado, so they can get some kind of closure on their specific incident that they've gone through. I always encourage going to the gym, exercising, so we do have 2 gyms that they can work out in the lunch break, kind of get a little bit of a stress release, maybe decompress for just a few minutes in the middle of the day, and then get right back into it, because their adrenaline dumps throughout the day and the type of trauma they're exposed to is pretty continuous, so we have to be able to look out for each other.
What would you say are some of the most traumatic cases for officers, especially when concerning drugs and overdoses?
Usually when it affects our most vulnerable populations, which are going to be our children, our elderly, people experiencing mental illness, so those are probably the most traumatic. I know for me, anytime it deals with kids, especially because I have kids, especially when they were younger, when I was on the streets, that usually affects me the most. But you got to be able to, I don't want to say get past it, but because you have the next call to go to, so we have to kind of internalize it a little bit. So through some of our wellness initiatives, they're able to, get closure on that and get that out of them.
I'm so happy to hear that you are seeing it from their perspective as well. As we have this population of families in the community, but our police officers are also families. They're also dads and moms, and they have families to go home to. So this epidemic and just the crisis that we continue to see, and it's nothing new. The drug may be new, but the impact on a community when drugs are involved is not new, right? This is something that we've been seeing, for decades. But not to forget the impact it's also making on our law enforcement. They're the ones day in and day out seeing it and having to make those quick decisions on the scene.
Absolutely. I've said it before that hurt people hurt people. And if our officers are hurting in any way, they're not going to be able to provide the level of service that we're expecting, that I'm expecting. So we want to make sure we take care of them as well in-house, because if something happens, they're going to call 911 to look for us to come and take care of that issue.
Yeah, absolutely. I know one of the kids that I interviewed, she said, sometimes law enforcement can be scary. And, her parent had a mental health breakdown and even was using, and she was afraid to call law enforcement because it was scary for her, and she might have made that call, but there was just some hesitation, and even now her mother has since passed away. She wonders, maybe I should have called. What would you like to say to families out there, especially kids and teens who may be seeing their loved ones struggle with addiction, and what should they do, and how can law enforcement help? Or maybe you're not the first person to call. What should they do?
So yes, law enforcement can sometimes be scary, depending on everybody's perception or experiences that they had and stuff like that. But the sooner we get involved, the sooner we can intervene, the sooner we can provide resources, provide help, provide education. Our school resource officer program does exactly that. They're trying to be at the very, very forefront, whether it's the elementary, middle, or high school. They're teaching the kids about proper education when it comes to saying no to drugs. They have a number of programs. They give out awards for kids that go above and beyond to do the right thing. So those type of programs are hopefully breaking down some of those barriers.
Yeah. And serving dinner here at Valerie's house, and playing basketball with the kids. I was going to say, that doesn't hurt at all, does it?
No, that's great. You see our social medias all
Yeah.
the time. We're throwing the football around, playing basketball. So we're not always kicking indoors and arresting bad guys, which we have to do because we want to be able to protect people. But more often than not, we're doing those other fun events.
Yeah. I think the families and the kids need to see you as a partner too. Like, you're here to help them, and you don't want to ever see a child suffer, and that's the reason why you're getting involved when you are.
Absolutely. Every officer that I know that I work with, whether it's in this agency or one of our surrounding agency, one of our law enforcement partners, everybody goes to work wanting to help people.
Yeah. Is there anything else you'd specifically like to add about it being Overdose Awareness Month? And we have a special night here, and it's packed, the families, and it's too late for those kids. They've lost someone, that person out there, attempted one last time, and they lost their life over it. Anything else you want to share about what you're seeing out there, or what the community needs to know right now?
As far as the community goes, I want to reassure them that the Fort Myers Police Department is doing everything we can on the education, enforcement, prevention side. Every officer goes through many hours of training throughout the year. We have Narcan for every officer, so we use that to try and save lives. We have unbelievable partnerships, obviously, with Valerie's house, one of my favorite ones, Kimmie's Recovery Zone, and a whole host of other informal partnerships that we have. And we're always looking to enhance those partnerships, make that better. Some of the other things we do on our end is we track all overdose events, whether it causes death or not. So we track those, and we're looking for the root cause, or what's the common denominator in that maybe location, that residence, that house, or that person. So we're trying to see what could we do, and then what kind of resources we can throw at it, or put at it, or offer it. So hopefully those traumatic events aren't repeated again and again and again.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Is there anything that makes Southwest Florida more challenging, this area more challenging community when it comes to the drug crisis?
I wouldn't say more challenging. I would say that we have unbelievable and great communication with not only our federal partners, because we do partner up with the DEA, and we're always looking to exhaust, like I said, all our resources when it comes to overdose events. And when it comes to the prosecution side, our great state attorney's office is unbelievable in helping and assisting us, holding those accountable, holding those people accountable, those dealers accountable that are pushing these drugs and getting it on the streets where it doesn't belong.
Absolutely. Last question, if there's anyone listening to this podcast right now and they have seen signs, they think their parent, their brother, their sister could be using or is involved in, is there a tip line? Is there a hotline? What do you recommend they do? Is it through you? Is it through the sheriff's office? Any thoughts or guidance on that?
So a well-known law enforcement crime prevention tip is to see, is you see something, say something, tell somebody. Tell somebody, whether it's a first responder, a teacher, a parent, a loved one, a friend. Get that call going. If you don't know who to call, I know that 211, which is the United Way, they have many resources. They at least hopefully point you in the right direction, because some of them may not be aware yet, and we're trying to get that word about Kimmie's Recovery Zone and Valerie's House, those specialized places. So 211 would be a good generic place to start, and then they can kind of get into those specialized locations.
When should they call 911?
If it's a dire emergency, if someone is sick, you think someone's experienced an overdose, absolutely, that's the time to do it. Don't hesitate.
Okay. Thank you for everything you're doing for us.
Oh, no problem. Happy to.